So yeah, I'm from the boogie down Bronx. I'm not from Vermont. Sorry to say. So I like to get the audience, get to know the audience a little bit. So first of all, how many of you have heard of the phrase food desert? How many of you have used the term food desert? Good. I'm so glad that the speakers did not use the term food deserts today because I'm going to talk about that term food desert and how it really affects the work that I'm doing and the work that a lot of people are doing and not to use that phrase. And so I had to sort of think about when I was coming here and they asked me to speak about why not to use that phrase food desert. And so this is a conversation that the people of color have been talking about because we've been hearing that phrase, and it's like, wait a second, have we ever used that phrase? And so I want to sort of take you on a journey because I had to understand where that phrase food desert came from, so I had to go way back. I'm taking you way, way back. So food has been the bane of my existence. I gotta have it. I want it. I love it. Family, tradition, sustenance. And when someone can prepare it and it can cook really good, it tastes so good. Now, as I recall growing up, I really didn't care too much about where food came from or how it was prepared. All I knew was cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Tricks are for kids, you silly rabbit. Me Lucky Charms, magically delicious. Or, Frosted Flakes, they're great. And then I would hear the musical sound. Mr. Softy, freezer fresh. All the scraped ices, which were 10 cents because they taste so good. Now, in my neighborhood, we had grocery stores that were within walking distance. We had Safeway, and we had Met Food. Now, I was sort of partial to Met Food because my father was a produce manager. And as a result, we got all the best produce, fruits and vegetables, as well as meats. And on weekends, he would travel with his friends and go fishing. He would bring so much fish home that my mother literally could not give it away. Also, during that time, we had, the best candy, if you want to call it, because it didn't taste like the official candy that we have today. Also, our neighborhood grocers knew us by name, and if we needed to get food on credit, we got food on credit. I had such a great time growing up in the projects in the Lower East Side at that time. But you know what? No one ever called our community a food desert. So in 1968, said goodbye to the Lower East Side and moved up to Harlem, USA. Now, I remember on the FDR Drive, driving on the FDR Drive, I was in the back seat at the time, I wasn't driving. We got off the exit, 125th Street. I smelled that aroma. What is that aroma? Oh, my goodness. It's fish and chips and Majestic on 129th Street and Lenox Avenue, for those who know who I'm talking about. And then back in the day, if you went up, that smell of aroma is coming from Sherman's Barbecue. The best barbecue, rotisserie chicken, ribs, and she has something with this little spaghetti sauce she used to put on, which was so good. And if you wanted some coleslaw or potato salad, she put that in, and she always give you a wedge of Italian bread. Now, for your late nighters, those party people, late at night, if you wanted a snack, or you would go to the famous Wells, 7th Avenue in Harlem. Harlem was jumping at that time. It seems like every mom and pop store was cooking. As a matter of fact, if you had to pay your rent, that Con Ed bill or the telephone bill, many of us would cook food right out of our apartments. That's right. Best chicken and fish dinners, $5, 2 sides. But if you wanted some pecan pie, a peach cobbler, or even some pound cake, you got to pay $1 extra for that. Again, we had grocery stores that knew us by name, or we can get credit. No one called our neighborhood a food desert. Now, I started to see a little change back in the 70s when I saw this sort of establishment with these golden arches coming in, but you know what? Didn't pay too much attention to that. Also, I started to see a change back in the 80s that more of these sort of food establishments were coming in. We had a guy who was a colonel on a bucket with some finger-licking chicken, or establishments saying that, you can have it your way. So in 1985, I left Harlem and moved to the Bronx. Now, that's when I got started back in 1985, working with empty lots, turning them into community gardens. However, at that time, most empty lots being turned into community gardens were also being turned into new housing establishments in those fast food chains. A Colonel, King, a Blimpie. Oh, yes, those arches again. However, in the Bronx, that aroma again, this time it's up and down Tremont Avenue, the Cuchafrito places, the Panel, Tostones, beans and rice. You know what I'm talking about. And if you went further up in the Bronx, you had the jerk chicken, oxtails, you know what I'm talking about, peas and rice, curry chicken, and curry goat. Again, no one talked about our neighborhood being a food desert. So how did that happen? Where does the concept of a food desert come from? So I had to go on the internet and look on Wikipedia and exactly food desert. I think it says something had started in the UK, and it was used as a phrase to designate communities who did not have access or limited access to fresh food, healthy food, and had to go a long distance, a long way to their local supermarket. I'd say shame on those who have used that term, food desert, as a means to pad their funding, because in essence, what it truly is poverty and hunger. What it truly is poverty and hunger, or I'll call it food apartheid. Now, you're going to say, well, people have to use statistics. I can give you statistics. 20 million people, 17.5 households are hungry or food insecure. I live in the Congressional District 17, poorest in the nation. High incidence of asthma, diabetes, obesity, high dropout rate, employment. I can give you the statistics. However, does it really define exactly what's happening in my neighborhood? No, we can't afford organic food. It's too expensive. But we can try to grow food in our community gardens, and we can go to farmers markets with our WIC coupons and our food stamps. But yet, it's only a certain amount of population that can do that. And so where do we go from here? Where do we go from here to understand the dynamics of a food system? A food system that we know is based on two things, economics and race. And I tell you that because if you look at what happened to the supermarkets, they left. They left because we couldn't afford what they had to offer, so they went to upscale communities so the particular population could pay for fresh produce and organic produce. So what does that say about our food system as a whole? Food has been used as a dividing tool along race, economics, and politics. Community-based organizations, nonprofits, have used maps. You know, those maps, food desert maps, in different areas, statistics, as a framework to sort of substantiate and give credibility to the work that they're doing. We have a problem. Houston, we have a problem. No, we don't. We have a crisis. We have a crisis in the food system when a country that can give so much, there are people who are still poor. And so what does that say about our food system? What does it say about that term, Food desert, when it's used to ostracize, when it's used to define a particular group of people, as a result, it stigmatizes that group. It stigmatizes that group in such a way that it becomes the haves and the have-nots. And I'm not saying that the intention of people using that word, but the thing is that it never came from us. It's not a phrase that we, people of color, use. It's an outside term that was placed from an outsider to describe exactly our neighborhoods. And so I'd say time and time again, if you want to know what's going on in our neighborhood, number one, ask. As Tanya said, we don't need people to tell us what to do. We already know what to do. Ask. With this note, I want to leave you with, come to my community. Come see the changes that we're making around food. Don't always focus on the negative things that are going on. Come and see the people that are making a difference in my community, the people that are growing the food, the people that are cooking the food, communities of people that are taking care of one another. Because one thing about our community, when we don't have food, we share. And please, please, don't use the phrase food desert.